Most people don't even realize they're under attack by their own mind. It's not the economy that ruins them, not politics, not even bad luck. It's the quiet war in their head, the war they're losing, because they don't even know it's being fought. And every day, the same pattern repeats. They wake up with possibility in their hands, and by nightfall, they've traded it for distraction, excuses, and the sweet poison of tomorrow. Your first hour is not just a time slot on the clock. It is the foundation upon which your entire day is built. It's the moment where you decide, consciously or unconsciously, whether you'll own the day or be owned by it. Think about it. How many people open their eyes in the morning and instantly hand over control? They grab their phone, dive into a sea of messages, news alerts, and social media feeds. Before they've even gotten out of bed, they've let the world dictate their mood, priorities, and mental state. That first hour has been stolen, and they don't even realize the cost. The reason your first hour is so critical is because your mind is most impressionable right after waking up. It's fresh clay, ready to be shaped. Whatever you feed it in those minutes hardens into the tone and focus of your day. Start your morning with chaos, and you'll carry chaos with you like a weight on your back. Start it with clarity, and you'll walk into the day with intention and strength. The mind doesn't magically snap into discipline at 2 p.m. It follows the blueprint you hand it at sunrise. When you treat your first hour as sacred, you stop letting chance dictate your life. You become deliberate. Imagine it as the launch sequence of a rocket. If one step is sloppy, the whole mission suffers. If the fuel isn't ready, the ship doesn't lift off. Your morning routine is your fueling station. The way you speak to yourself, the actions you take, the energy you build, all of it compounds. And just like a rocket burns most of its fuel in the first few minutes of flight, you burn through your mental fuel early. If you waste it, you won't have enough to push through the resistance later. The danger is in thinking your first hour doesn't matter, because you'll get on track later. Later never comes. A messy start sets off a chain reaction. You skip the small habits that keep you sharp. You feel behind before you've begun. Your brain starts the day in a reactive state, constantly putting out fires instead of building anything. By the time you try to shift gears, your energy is already leaking, and your focus has scattered. The most successful people in any field protect their mornings with a kind of ruthless loyalty. They know that once you give that time away, you can't get it back. That's why they design their first hour with precision. Maybe it starts with movement, not a mindless scroll. Maybe it's silence, meditation, or journaling. Maybe it's reading something that challenges them instead of numbs them. Whatever it is, it's intentional, repeatable, and immune to the excuses that ruin lesser routine. This isn't about waking up at some magical time or following a rigid list of steps someone else swears by. It's about knowing what fuels you and committing to it daily. It's about removing the friction that makes bad choices easy. If your phone is your biggest distraction, keep it outside the bedroom. If you waste time wondering what to do first, decide the night before. If you know your mind is sharpest in the morning, feed it the hardest, most important work before the noise of the world seeps. When you begin sloppy, you send a signal to yourself that standards don't matter. You train your brain to coast. But when you start sharp, you reinforce the idea that excellence is the default, not the exception. That mental shift is worth more than any motivational speech or productivity hack. The first hour is proof to yourself that you take your time seriously. And when you start taking your time seriously, everything else begins to fall in line. The moment you start negotiating with your own weakness, you've already lost ground. That internal conversation, maybe I'll skip it today, maybe I'll start tomorrow, maybe I've done enough, is not harmless. It's the soft voice of self-sabotage, dressed up as reason. It's the same voice that has talked people out of greatness for centuries. Weakness doesn't always shout. More often, it whispers. It doesn't demand you quit outright. It just asks you to slow down. Take it easy, compromise a little, and those small concessions are the cracks that eventually split the whole foundation. The dangerous thing about negotiating with your weakness is that it almost always feels logical in the moment. You'll tell yourself you're resting when you're really avoiding. You'll call it being realistic when you're really just scared. You'll say, I deserve a break, when you haven't earned the work you're taking a break from. Your mind is clever. It knows how to make quitting look like wisdom. That's why it wins so often. It convinces you it's not quitting at all. Discipline is not built in moments of ease. It's forged in the exact moments when you're tempted to abandon your plan. When you've told yourself you'll do something, and that sly little voice offers you a way out. That's the battlefield. You can train yourself to win there, but it takes removing the option to negotiate in the first place. If you've decided you're going to work out today, don't ask yourself if you feel like it. If you've committed to writing for an hour, don't open the door to maybe I'll do it later. Decisions made once should be executed daily, without reopening the case for debate. Think about how soldiers are trained. They don't ask themselves every morning if they're going to follow orders. They follow them because that's the job. They execute because that's what they've committed to. Your own commitments deserve the same level of respect. Every time you let your emotions re-vote on a decision, you weaken your own authority over yourself. You teach your brain that your word is flexible, negotiable, up for debate. The irony is that negotiating with weakness rarely leads to real rest or satisfaction. You skip the workout, but you don't feel refreshed. You feel guilty. You put off the project. But instead of relaxing, you carry the weight of it in the back of your mind all day. You think you've bought yourself freedom, but what you've really purchased is regret. And regret is far heavier than discipline. The people who consistently achieve their goals aren't necessarily more talented or more motivated than anyone else. They've simply stopped giving themselves the option to back out. They don't enter into debates with themselves when things get uncomfortable. They treat their goals like contracts that cannot be broken without consequence. And because of that, their mind learns to obey instead of argue. Your weakness is like a skilled lawyer. They'll always find loopholes, emotional clauses, and technicalities to get you to fold. If you keep showing up to court, you'll eventually be persuaded. The only way to win is to refuse the trial altogether. To cut off the conversation before when you say this is non-negotiable and mean it, your weakness has nowhere to go. It can only watch as you follow through. And here's the truth most people never admit. That voice of weakness never disappears completely. You just get better at shutting it down. The first few times, it will feel like a war. You'll argue, resist, and drag yourself forward. But over time, the act of refusing becomes instinctive. It becomes who you are. Someone who does not make deals with the very thing, trying to keep them small. Small wins are the quiet victories nobody celebrates, but that build the unshakable foundation of lasting success. Too often, people chase the big breakthroughs, the overnight transformations, the monumental achievements, only to overlook the truth that greatness is assembled brick by brick. In the unnoticed moment, each small win, when treated with respect and seriousness, compounds into something unstoppable. It is the fuel that powers your journey, the proof that progress is real and achievable. Imagine building a wall. Every brick matters. You wouldn't say, I don't need to place this one carefully. It's just one brick. But in life, that's exactly what most people do with their daily choices. They dismiss the small habits, choosing to scroll a few extra minutes, grabbing convenience food, hitting snooze as insignificant. Yet those small decisions are the mortar between the bricks, holding the structure together or letting it crumble. Respecting small wins means showing up for yourself when no one is watching. It means valuing the simple act of choosing water instead of soda, reading one page of a book instead of watching a video, taking 5 minutes to breathe deeply instead of rushing headlong into the next distraction. These moments feel minor because the rewards are subtle and slow to appear. But the person who consistently honors these small wins gains a secret advantage: momentum. Momentum is the hidden force behind all excellence. It's the reason why some days feel effortless, why sometimes you're in the zone and everything flows. That momentum is earned, not luck. It comes from stacking countless small wins until they create a wave that carries you forward, even on days when motivation is low and resistance is high. But respecting small wins isn't about perfection or relentless grinding. It's about pride. The kind of pride that tells you that your day is worth the best you can give, no matter how small the task. It's the refusal to let good enough be an excuse to settle for less. When you treat the small things like million-dollar deals, you shift your identity. You become someone who honors commitments to yourself, not just when it's convenient, but all the time. Here's a truth many overlook. Self-discipline isn't a thunderous roar. It's a whisper that says, I'll do what I promised. One choice at a time. Every choice you make to keep your word is a vote for the person you want to become. And those votes add up faster than most imagine. One small win today, another tomorrow, and suddenly you're living a life transformed by the quiet power of consistent, intentional action. Small wins also build confidence. Each time you prove you can stick to your word, even on the smallest things, you grow your trust in yourself. That trust becomes armor against doubt, fear, and distraction. You start to believe that if you can master the tiny moments, you can handle the big ones too. That belief is priceless. On the other hand, ignoring small wins teaches your brain that your promises don't matter. When you skip the small habits, your mind learns it's okay to break agreements with yourself. This erosion doesn't happen overnight, but over time, it chips away at your self-respect and your ability to pursue bigger goals. The art of respecting small wins means being present in the details of your day, not waiting for inspiration or motivation to strike. It means knowing that greatness is not a lightning bolt, but a slow, steady current shaped by consistent effort. It means valuing your time and energy as precious currency and spending it wisely. Every small win is a story you tell yourself about who you are. When you celebrate them, you reinforce your identity as a person of discipline, focus, and commit. When you dismiss them, you reinforce a pattern of excuses and compromises. Excellence, then, is less about dramatic moments and more about the quiet, everyday victories that most people overlook. Victories that, in the end, define your life. Most people give up when they're tired, not because they've reached the end of their strength, but because they let tiredness become their decision maker. Tiredness is a signal, yes, but it's not a verdict. It's an alert from your body and mind that something needs attention, not an excuse to quit. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that they never get tired. It's that they've learned to push past the fatigue and keep moving forward anyway. Fatigue is natural. It comes for everyone. But what separates winners is the understanding that tiredness doesn't equal inability. There's a critical moment when your mind can choose to let tiredness rule or refuse it permission. That moment is a test, and it's one you can train yourself to pass. When you let tiredness dictate your choices, you surrender your power. But when you acknowledge it and push through, you reclaim control over your destiny. This isn't about reckless overexertion or ignoring your body's need. It's about recognizing that the mind and body are not always aligned in their sense of limits. The mind is capable of far more than it believes, and the body can often recover faster than your mind expects if you give it the chance. Too many people stop at the first sign of fatigue, mistaking temporary discomfort for permanent defeat. But fatigue is often a wall that only seems impenetrable because you haven't tried to climb it yet. Think about athletes, artists, or entrepreneurs, the ones who achieve extraordinary things. They get tired too. Their secret is not endless energy, it's discipline. Discipline is the muscle that carries you through. When your energy falters, it's the voice that says, one more step. When every fiber screams, excellence lives in those moments when you're tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed, not when you're fresh and motivated. This means training yourself to work with tiredness instead of against it. When fatigue sets in, slow down but don't stop. Shift your focus to smaller, manageable tasks. Take deliberate breaths. Remind yourself why you started. These are not signs of weakness, but strategies for endurance. When you treat tiredness as a challenge to overcome, rather than a reason to quit, you develop resilience. The mind's tendency is to avoid discomfort, which is why tiredness feels like an enemy. But discomfort is the language of growth. If you only ever do what feels easy, you'll never build strength, skill, or character. The more you push through fatigue, the more you teach your mind that it can handle hardship. Each time you refuse to let tiredness decide for you, you widen the gap between who you are and who you were yesterday. Rest is important, but rest is not the default answer to feeling tired. Rest is the reward for effort well spent. Too many people confuse avoidance with rest, They stop working because they feel tired, then feel guilty for stopping, and spiral into procrastination or self-doubt. But if you reframe tiredness as a milestone rather than a roadblock, you learn to respect your limits without surrendering to them prematurely. Remember, the strongest people don't have the most energy. They have the most endurance. Endurance comes from practice, mindset, and habits that don't let fatigue dictate the outcome. When you decide not to quit because you're tired, you're not just pushing your body or mind. You're building an unbreakable will. This kind of perseverance is what separates those who talk about their dreams from those who live them. It's easy to be motivated when the sun is shining and everything feels good. The real test and the real victory is when you keep going in the dark, when the energy fades but your purpose burns bright. So learn to respect tiredness as a sign to adjust, not to stop. Let it be a whisper, not a shout. The person who masters tiredness masters the game of life itself. Every word you speak to yourself is a contract, a promise you make in the quiet chambers of your mind. And every time you break that promise, you chip away at your own trustworthiness. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself, and it is built, above all else, on integrity. When your words lose value, your foundation crumbles. Your mind learns that your voice isn't reliable, and that's a dangerous place to be. Think about how seriously you treat commitments made to others. You wouldn't casually break a promise to a friend or colleague without consequences, yet too often we treat the promises we make to ourselves like optional suggestions. We say, "I'll start tomorrow, I'll just skip this once," or "I don't feel like it today," and the moment passes without follow-through. Those are broken contracts, and while no one else may notice, your subconscious files each one away as a breach of trust. When you break a promise to yourself, you send a message that your goals and standards are negotiable. Your brain begins to see your commitments as mere ideas, not obligations. Over time, this erodes your confidence, self-respect, and motivation. The vicious cycle is clear. The less you keep your word to yourself, the less you believe you can achieve. And the less you believe you can achieve, the less likely you are to try. On the flip side, every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you reinforce a vital truth. You are dependable. You become someone who honors their word even in solitude, when there's no applause or external accountability. That reliability strengthens your inner voice and silences doubt. It creates a mental environment where your goals don't feel like distant fantasies, but achievable realities. Imagine your mind as a courtroom, and your words as evidence. Each promise you keep is a testimony that builds your case for success. Every broken promise is a crack in that case. If your testimony is consistent, your verdict will be confidence, discipline, and momentum. If your testimony wavers, your verdict will be hesitation, inconsistency, and stagnation. Respecting your words means treating them as sacred agreements. When you say, "I will write for an hour today," or "I will not eat that extra snack," or "I will get out of bed at this time," you are creating a contract with yourself. It's not an open-ended suggestion, but a binding decision. And the power lies not in the promise itself, but in the act of honoring it repeatedly. This commitment is not about perfection or harsh self-judgment. It's about showing up as your own ally and champion. When you slip, you don't punish yourself. You recommit. The difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't is that the successful person refuses to break their own contracts consistently. They understand that growth happens in the space between promises made and promises kept. The voice you cultivate inside your head is the one you carry through every challenge. If that voice is filled with broken promises, it becomes cynical and dismissive. If that voice is one of integrity and follow-through, it becomes your greatest ally. It stands behind you, pushes you forward, and reminds you of your potential, even when external circumstances try to pull you back. Keeping your word to yourself also creates a ripple effect in other areas of life. When you prove you can trust yourself,
others begin to trust you more. Your personal and professional relationships deepen because you become a person who follows through, who acts with conviction, and who respects commitments. The foundation of all success is reliability, and it starts with the quiet promises you keep in your own mind. Words are more than just sounds or thoughts. They are actions waiting to happen. When you honor your words, you transform your mind into a place of power, where discipline is not a burden, but a natural state. Every kept promise is a step closer to mastery over your own life.
Ending the day without earning tomorrow is one of the most overlooked but powerful habits you can develop. Most people think of their day as a series of disconnected moments. Wake up, work, relax, sleep, repeat. But excellence sees each day as a link in a chain. And the strength of that chain depends on how you close one day and prepare for the next. When you leave your day unfinished or unprepared, you're handing tomorrow a messy starting line, putting yourself at a disadvantage before you even begin. Think about the last time you woke up feeling disorganized or unsure of what your day would demand. That feeling of chaos is often the result of leaving too many loose ends the night before. It's a subtle thief of energy and focus. Instead of starting fresh, you're carrying yesterday's clutter into today's battles. Your mind has to spend precious energy sorting through unfinished tasks, unanswered questions, and unclear priorities. The result, you start behind, and the odds of slipping into distraction or procrastination increase. When you end the day by earning tomorrow, you're making a deposit into your future self's account. It's a deliberate act of responsibility and respect. This means taking the time, even if it's just a few minutes, to finish one meaningful task. Organize your workspace. Write down the first priorities for the next day, or prepare whatever will give you momentum the moment you wake up. These actions send a clear message to your brain that you are in control of your time, not the other way around. The habit of closing strong and setting up for success requires discipline and foresight. It's not glamorous or flashy, but it's profoundly effective. It turns chaos into order and hesitation into action. When you know what your day will start with, your mind can rest easy during sleep, because there's no lingering anxiety about what's waiting. You wake up with clarity, focus, and a sense of purpose already in motion. This concept also protects you from decision fatigue. The less you leave undecided the night before, the fewer choices you'll have to make in the morning when your willpower is low. Preparing for tomorrow in today's final moments creates mental space and energy for the important work you want to accomplish. It's like setting a domino line carefully so that when you push the first one, everything falls smoothly after. Finishing the day without earning tomorrow is like starting a race with your shoelaces untied. You might still run, but you'll waste energy fixing what could have been prevented. The habit of ending your day well is an investment in your personal momentum. And momentum is the secret weapon of high achievers. Momentum builds slowly and silently but can be lost quickly if you're not careful. Imagine a painter who leaves their canvas half-finished each evening. The next day, they have to spend time remembering what they intended to do, refining the flow, and fixing mistakes caused by incomplete work. The creative energy is drained before the real work begins. Your mind works the same way. Each unfinished task or unprepared moment saps your creative power and focus. When you commit to earning tomorrow before the day ends, you're not just managing tasks, you're shaping your identity. You become the person who respects time, who plans ahead, who honors their commitments, not just in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments between sunset and sleep. This identity shift is powerful. It rewires how your brain approaches challenges and opportunity. Closing the day strong also builds resilience. Life throws surprises, distractions, and setbacks at everyone. But when you habitually prepare for tomorrow, you create a buffer, a mental and emotional safety net that helps you respond instead of react. That preparation keeps you grounded, focused, and ready, even when chaos hits. The discipline to finish well is a signal to yourself and the universe that you are serious about your goals. It's a quiet declaration of intent that you will not leave things to chance or procrastination. It's a daily habit that separates those who merely dream from those who deliver. Not once or twice, but consistently over time. The almost good enough mentality is one of the silent killers of excellence. It creeps in quietly, disguised as practicality or reasonable standard. People say, that's close enough, or it'll do for now. And they settle for a finish line that's blurry and faint. But excellence isn't a vague target you aim near. It's a clear standard you refuse to compromise. When you starve the almost good enough mindset, you're telling yourself that your work, your effort, and your results deserve full commitment. No shortcuts. No half measures. This mentality is dangerous because it dulls ambition without triggering alarm. It feels safe and comfortable to accept good enough because it promises less stress and less pressure. But that comfort comes at a cost. Almost good enough breeds mediocrity, and mediocrity is a slow leak that drains potential. It steals pride, confidence, and momentum, often before the person realizes what's happening. Think about an artist who stops painting just before the details are finished, a writer who doesn't revise their work one more time, or an athlete who cuts a practice short because it's close enough. What's missing is a refusal to settle, a hunger for something better than the minimum. Excellence demands a stubborn refusal to let that'll do become your standard operating procedure. Starving almost good enough starts with awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act of rationalizing shortcuts or lowering standards. When you notice that voice saying, it's good enough, challenge it immediately. Ask yourself what excellence looks like in this moment. What would full effort, full care, and full attention produce? Then decide whether you're willing to give that. This isn't about perfectionism, which is a paralyzing fear of failure disguised as high standards. It's about pride, the kind of pride that demands your best because you respect the work and the outcome, not because you're afraid to fail. Pride makes you take ownership, and ownership drives consistent quality. When you starve almost good enough, you also build a mindset of growth and learning. Every time you push beyond what feels sufficient, you stretch your capability. You develop new skills, sharpen your focus, and refine your judgment. This is how expertise is formed, through deliberate effort to go beyond comfort and convenience. The almost good enough mentality also affects how you see yourself. When you accept less than your best, you tell your subconscious that you're okay with second rate. That belief limits your vision of what's possible and shrinks your ambitions. But when you refuse to settle, you signal that you are capable of more, worthy of more, and destined for more. This mindset influences everything, from the way you treat your work, to how you care for your relationships, and how you take care of your health. Excellence isn't compartmentalized. It spills over because it's an identity, not just an. When you start starving almost good enough, you upgrade your entire approach to life. It's important to recognize that starving almost good enough is a muscle that takes training. It requires repeated commitment to choose full effort over shortcuts, even when the stakes seem low or the task feels small. Small moments of integrity accumulate into a lifestyle of excellence. One way to cultivate this habit is by setting non-negotiable standards for yourself in key areas. For example, decide that every piece of work you submit will be reviewed at least twice, or that you will not skip a workout unless absolutely necessary. By holding yourself accountable to these standards, you build resistance to the temptation of settling for less. Another key is to embrace discomfort as part of the process. Often, almost good enough feels easier because pushing beyond that threshold requires more energy, more focus, and sometimes more humility. But the discomfort is temporary. The payoff is lasting. The satisfaction that comes from knowing you didn't cut corners far outweighs the momentary struggle. Refusing to settle also means developing patience with progress. Excellence rarely bursts onto the scene fully formed. It grows through persistence, iteration, and refinement. Starving almost good enough means giving yourself permission to take the time necessary to do it right, not rushing for the sake of speed or immediate result. Ultimately, starving almost good enough is a declaration that your work, your goals, and your life are worth your full attention and dedication. It's a powerful step toward mastery, one that shapes not only what you produce, but who you become. Your circle, the people you spend your time with, shapes the trajectory of your life more than almost any other factor. Some people lift you up,
fuel your ambition, and expand your vision. Others drain your energy, sow doubt, and hold you back without you even notice. Knowing who belongs in your circle and having the courage to audit it without apology is one of the most powerful decisions you can make on the path to excellence. Most people avoid this audit because it's uncomfortable. We fear hurting feelings, creating conflict, or facing the loneliness that sometimes comes with change. But the truth is this: you cannot rise above the average level of those you surround yourself with. Your habits, your mindset, and even your identity are shaped by the company you keep. If you're serious about growth, you must be serious about who you allow close. This doesn't mean cutting everyone out at the first sign of struggle or disagreement. It means recognizing patterns and making intentional choices. Some relationships are temporary and serve a purpose, while others become long-term anchors. The key is to identify which people add value to your life and which ones consistently take without giving. People who drain your hunger are often subtle. They might criticize your dreams disguised as realistic advice. They may dismiss your goals with sarcasm or minimize your efforts through comparison. Sometimes they simply create emotional chaos that distracts you from your focus. Their negativity is not a reflection of your potential, but it becomes your limitation if you let it settle in your mind. Conversely, those who feed your hunger act like fuel for your fire. They celebrate your wins, challenge your thinking, and inspire you to stretch beyond comfort. They hold you accountable, not out of judgment, but because they believe in your ability to grow. These people create a safe space for you to be ambitious, vulnerable, and relentless, all at once. Auditing your circle starts with brutal honesty. Who in your life consistently lifts you high? Who drags you down? Who supports your dreams? And who doubts them? This isn't about making a quick judgment, but about observing the impact each person has on your mental and emotional state. Do they energize you or exhaust you? Do they believe in your vision or plant seeds of doubt? Once you've identified those dynamics, the next step is action. That action may be setting boundaries, limiting time spent with people who drain you, or steering conversations away from toxic topics. It may mean having honest talks about the impact of certain behavior. And sometimes it means letting go. Letting go is painful, but often necessary. It clears space for relationships that support your growth, rather than hinder it. Remember, this is not about selfishness, but self-preservation. You owe it to yourself to protect your energy and focus. Your circle is your ecosystem. Toxic elements can poison your growth just as easily as nourishment can accelerate it. Choosing who to keep close is choosing the environment in which you thrive or wither. This process is ongoing. People change, and so do your needs. What was once a supportive relationship might become limiting, and what was once a casual acquaintance might become an unexpected source of strength. Stay vigilant and adaptable. Regularly reassess your circle to ensure it aligns with your goals and values. The courage to audit your circle also builds your personal boundaries and self-respect. When you refuse to tolerate negativity, disguised as concern or sabotage masked as advice, you strengthen your mental defenses. You communicate clearly what you will accept and what you won't. That clarity is magnetic. It attracts the right people and repels the wrong ones. The people you surround yourself with don't just influence your actions. They influence your identity. If you want to be disciplined, ambitious, and resilient, you must be around others who embody those qualities. Energy is contagious, and attitudes are infectious. Choose wisely, because your circle is the soil where your future is rooted. Consistency is the quiet engine behind every success story. It's not the flashes of brilliance or the moments of inspiration that create lasting change. It's the steady, unyielding commitment to show up day after day, no matter what. Being unreasonably consistent means refusing to let excuses, moods, or circumstances dictate whether you do the work. It's a mindset that views every single day as an opportunity to reinforce who you are becoming. The world doesn't stop on weekends, holidays, or rainy days, and neither should you. Excellence is indifferent to external conditions. When you build unreasonably consistent habits, you step outside the cycle of motivation and willpower that so many people rely on, and fail when those forces run dry. Instead, your actions become automatic, ingrained like muscle memory, carrying you forward even when enthusiasm fades. Imagine a marathon runner who trains only when the weather is perfect, or only when they feel energized. They will never reach the finish line. But the runner who trains regardless of conditions, who laces up their shoes whether it's freezing or scorching, whether they're tired or energized, builds endurance, strength, and resilience. That is what unreasonably consistent people do. This kind of consistency requires fierce discipline. It means doing the work when no one is watching, when the rewards feel distant or invisible. It means embracing repetition without boredom and finding purpose in the routine. The secret is that greatness is not a moment. It's a habit formed through thousands of tiny decisions. The unreasonably consistent person doesn't wait for perfect conditions or big breakthroughs. They create progress through simple daily acts of commitment. One of the biggest obstacles to consistency is the temptation to negotiate with yourself, to allow exceptions that slowly become habit. I'll skip today and make it up tomorrow. I deserve a break after that hard week. Or it's just one day. These justifications may feel harmless, but they erode momentum and chip away at your self-trust. Each missed day weakens the chain of progress, making it easier to miss the next one. Unreasonably consistent people don't buy into those excuses. They understand that progress is fragile and must be protected fiercely. They treat every day as a brick laid in the foundation of their future. Some days the bricks feel heavy, but the wall rises anyway. They know that missing one day might not seem like a big deal, but over time, the cumulative effect is monumental. Consistency also builds confidence. When you see yourself follow through day after day, your inner voice shifts from doubt to belief. You prove to yourself that you are reliable and capable. That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, propelling you to take on bigger challenges with courage. This doesn't mean being perfect. Slips and setbacks happen, but what defines you is how quickly you return to the habit. The unreasonably consistent person treats failure as a detour, not a dead end. They don't use a mistake as a license to quit, but as a reminder to recommit even harder. The beauty of unreasonably consistent effort is that it compounds, like interest on money. Small daily improvements accumulate into massive gains over time. This principle applies to skills, habits, relationships, and minds. The person who masters this law can look back and say with confidence that their success was not luck or talent, but an unwavering commitment to show up, even on the hard days. Another key to unreasonably consistent behavior is simplifying your approach. When habits are overly complex or rely on motivation, they're easy to break. But habits designed to be simple, clear, and non-negotiable survive the inevitable storms of life. The goal is to make your commitment so automatic that it becomes part of your identity. Being unreasonably consistent also means embracing patience. The results you seek may not show up immediately, but the daily work plants seeds that will sprout when the time is right. You trust the process, knowing that consistency is the best investment you can make in yourself. In the end, unreasonably consistent people aren't chasing perfection or approval. They're chasing mastery over their own lives. They don't rely on bursts of inspiration or fleeting motivation. Instead, they build a fortress of habits that carry them steadily forward, no matter what. Discomfort is often mistaken for a warning sign, a signal to retreat and seek safety. But what if discomfort is actually your compass, pointing you exactly where you need to go to grow? The truth is, every time you feel uneasy, stretched, or out of your comfort zone, you are standing at the edge of transformation. The people who achieve mastery understand this instinctively. They learn to embrace discomfort, not as a barrier, but as a discomfort is the language your mind and body use to say, you are evolving. It appears when you challenge old patterns, confront fears, or push your limits. It's a sign that you are breaking free from the familiar and stepping into new territory. This territory is where growth happens, where skills sharpen, and where character is built. Without discomfort, you remain stagnant, trapped in routines that no longer serve you. Most people avoid discomfort because it feels unpleasant. Our natural response is to seek ease, to look for shortcuts, or to return to what's known. But this instinct, while protective in danger, becomes a prison in the pursuit of excellence. Discomfort is not something to fear, but something to lean into. It's a signal that you're doing something meaningful, something that matters enough to push against resistance. Think about the moments when you learned something new or overcame a challenge. Did it feel comfortable at first? Rarely. It felt hard, frustrating, even painful. But by sitting with that discomfort, by refusing to back down, you gained new skills and new confidence. Each uncomfortable step forward is an investment in your future capabilities. Discomfort is also a test of your commitment. It weeds out the casual from the serious. When you choose to move forward, despite the unease, you prove to yourself that your goals are not negotiable. You cultivate resilience, the ability to keep going when the easy path tempts you to quit. Resilience is built one uncomfortable moment at a time. The problem is that many people misinterpret discomfort as a sign they are on the wrong path. They see resistance and conclude that the effort isn't worth it. But resistance is often the exact opposite. It's proof that you're challenging yourself, that you're pushing boundaries. If everything felt easy, you probably wouldn't be growing at all. Embracing discomfort also means accepting that growth is rarely linear. Progress often comes in waves, with setbacks and plateaus. Those uncomfortable moments are when you learn the most about your limits, your mindset, and your ability to adapt. The people who succeed are those who don't run from discomfort, but who use it as a tool to sharpen their focus and deepen their resolve. You can develop a healthy relationship with discomfort by reframing how you see it. Instead of a threat, view it as feedback, valuable information about where you need to improve or what you need to confront. When you feel the urge to avoid discomfort, remind yourself that the resistance is temporary, but the growth is lasting. The willingness to be uncomfortable also expands your comfort zone. The more you face hard situations, the more you teach your mind and body that discomfort is manageable. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes routine. You become someone who can handle stress, pressure, and challenge with calm and clarity. Discomfort is the gateway to confidence. Every time you push through a difficult moment, you add to your reservoir of courage. You build proof that you are capable of more than you believed. This confidence then becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. The more you embrace discomfort, the more you trust yourself to handle the unknown. Ignoring discomfort, on the other hand, leads to regret. It means settling for less than your potential and shrinking your future. The cost of avoiding discomfort is high. It's a life lived inside safety walls that block the light of possibility. So when discomfort calls, don't run, face it, learn from it, make it your compass, guiding you toward the person you are meant to become.